The Greek civilization buffs have finally been announced in Rise of Kingdoms, and today we're going to decide, are they great or god-awful? Join me to find out. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. We finally got the details on the Greek civilization, the unit buff, as well as the two new commanders coming with Greece. And today we're going to be diving in, breaking down all of those, and I'm going to be giving you my honest opinion as to whether this release is a good thing, bad thing, or not so much. If you are also interested, let me know in the comment section below. Which do you think this is? Is Greece a good addition or not so good addition? And while you're at it, be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner. Hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. So, with that, let's dive into some of these details, shall we? So there are two main things that we're going to call out here. The first is the civilization buff for Greece. So as you can see, it is Aegean Epics, and you get increased infantry health by 5%, rallied army damage of 5%, and stone gathering speed of 10%. And from what I've heard, there's been a lot of outrage about the stone gathering speed buff of 10%. But if we take a look at some of the other buffs that we're seeing in the game today, I don't think that that's such a big deal. Because if you look, let's go to France, for example. You get troop healing speed of 3%, wood gathering speed of 10%, and hospital healing speed of 20%. So again, you have two buffs that are useful. Whereas with Greece, I would say you also have two buffs that are useful. Although, the question remains of, is that rally speed truly all that valuable for an infantry player? And I would say if you're running Tariq Pakal, it might be, but for the most players, probably not. And that's, I think, where the crux of the issue lies. Let's take a look at Rome. Rome, you have infantry defense of 5%, troop march speed of 5%, and food gathering speed of 10%. So Rome is another one of the great infantry civilizations, but once again, you're stuck with another gathering boost. Now, there has been the question around, is stone gathering speed even remotely relevant for an infantry player? And if we take a look at the training cost for infantry, you will notice very quickly there's no stone here. And I think that is where a lot of the outrage comes as to the fact that Greece has a stone gathering buff. In most cases, this is not going to be terribly useful. So, that begs the question. Is this civilization actually any more valuable? Well, the only other infantry civilization you have is really the Vikings. And you have Japan, but we're not really going to look at that. Vikings have infantry attack of 5%, counterattack damage of 3%, and troop load of 10%. So it's not out of character for us to be seeing a Greece civilization have a gathering boost. We see it with just about all of the other infantry civilizations. So the question then falls down to, are the buffs that we're getting with Greece of infantry health and rallied army damage of 5% that great? And my answer is this. If you are a rally lead that is an infantry main using Tariq Pakal or Pakal Herald, I would say this is the greatest civ that you could possibly have, because you have the rallied army damage, and that's across the board. That is counterattack damage, that is skill damage, everything. So it's better than the Ottoman civ for an infantry rally lead. And you have infantry health, which is by far the best of the three that you can have, whether that's defense, attack, or health. So I think at that level, this is great. Now, there is another question that could be asked here, which is, if you're an infantry primary, but you do have other different commanders that you rally with, is there value here? And my answer would be, if you are running infantry alongside cavalry who use stone, this civilization is totally viable for you. And so for someone like me, who has 2 cavalry marches, 2 infantry marches, and an archer march, I could totally see myself using Greece if I was to be a rally lead. Now, the real question, though, is how does this compare to the Ottomans? And so if I take a look here, let's find out. Ottoman buff has archer health of 5%. The majority of players are not using archers. This is statistics. I know. My archer fans are like, what? Yeah. But the majority of players are not using archers. Then you get troop march speed of 5%, which helps all of your units, and active skill damage of 5%. My belief is that the Greek civilization buff of rally damage crosses skill damage as well. So you're getting that buff regardless. And instead of archer health, you're getting infantry health. The trade-off here is the march speed. But if I were an infantry primary, and I'm taking a look at all of the other infantry civilizations, my honest feeling is this would probably be top 2. So on the infantry civ buffs, I'm a fan. So let's take a look at this special unit, the Argyros. Hopefully I pronounced that properly. So here we go. The elite Argyros. We have attack and defense buff, and the health is already going to get a nice bump because of the fact that you have that extra 5% health for your infantry units. Your march speed is 65, your load is 15, and your power is 10. That's pretty standard. So if we take a look at how this compares to some of these other infantry special units, and yes, I know we don't have the Berserker here, but we do have the rest of them. You can see that the health is about standard. It's the same as a normal Royal Guard, same as the Elite Legionary, but you do get that 5% boost, which is really nice. Where you do get the advantage, though, is on the attack and on the defense. So if we look, you can see the attack is typically around 221, and now it's 227, which is going to help in terms of dealing more damage if you're in the field. The defense, however, is 217, which if you're really looking for defense, you might want to go with Rome. So looking at this, these two buffs are not terribly inspiring to me, because as an infantry player, you typically want to be able to deal more damage when being swarmed, hence why the counterattack damage from the Viking civilization is really valuable. Now, other than that, you would have the health buff from France, which is always incredibly helpful, and you would have the defense buff and marching speed buff from Rome. So based on the unit alone, I'm honestly not that excited. It doesn't look to be all that impressive in terms of the attack, defense, offset. It looks kind of middling. So overall, not really terribly pumped about that. So that brings us to the next question. What about the new infantry commanders? Now, when you're starting Rise of Kingdoms, you get to pick your civilization, and that civilization you pick comes with a commander right out of the box. That commander for Greece will be Pericles. If we take a look at Pericles, you can see that he gains a shield of a damage factor for 3 seconds. And this means he's not dealing any damage with his active skill, which is kind of disappointing, I think, generally. And you can see he has infantry, garrison, and support. The support tree is one of the best in Rise of Kingdoms, so that's pretty great. But this active skill, not really that exciting to me. Next, we have infantry units led by this commander. Again, 10% increased attack and 10% increased defense. This is very balanced. Nothing terribly exciting here for an epic commander. I'd say that's just about fine. Next, we have when this commander is garrisoned in your city, your garrison deals 10% more damage. So this is going to be really nice with Sun Tzu on your city garrison, because 10% more damage is skill damage, counterattack damage, and normal attack damage. So that's actually great. However, I would have really liked to see this buff be in the field as well as in the garrison, because this essentially means for most of your field play, this commander is not going to be that useful. And fourth skill here, whenever this commander's troop is hit with a normal attack, it has a 10% chance to reduce the attacking troop's normal attack damage by 30% for 3 seconds. So this should make Pericles mildly swarm-proof, but realistically, I'm not seeing any buffs to counterattack damage, so it's not terribly exciting for me. As for expertise, we have commander's troop gains a shield, damage factor of 1000 for 3 seconds, so a little bit more of a buff on that shield, and the shield also increases their healing their troop receives by 15% and the march speed of infantry units by 20%. This expertise kind of sucks, in my opinion. None of the other infantry commanders today in the game really have significant healing for epic. So Sun Tzu and Eulogy, neither of these really have healing. Martel doesn't either. Alex really doesn't. The only one that does are Constantine and Richard. And to be honest, I would not put Pericles with either of them, because that shield isn't going to make much difference. If anything, I might put Pericles with Guan, because Guan gets benefit from that shield, and the other tankiness that you get with this commander could be useful in the early game. Other than that, though, I don't think that Pericles compares to Sun Tzu or Yolji or even Bjorn. I would maintain my recommendation that Bjorn Sun Tzu is awesome and would probably be my go-to for infantry off the bat. In other words, if you're starting in Rise of Kingdoms, I would not choose Greece specifically for the Pericles commander. So we've taken a look at Pericles, the epic commander, coming with this. Let's take a look at Pyrrhus, the new legendary commander coming to Rise of Kingdoms with this release. And it is important to mention that Pyrrhus is supposed to be at the same caliber as a lot of the other out-of-the-box legendary commanders that you see. So this includes Ethelfled, this includes Ragnar, this includes a lot of those gold key commanders, Mehmed, Double C, commanders like that. So we should not be taking Pyrrhus and comparing him to the current meta commanders because honestly, that's not going to be fair, and this is a gold key commander. So first things first, deals direct damage to a target troop, damage factor 1400, and increases the normal attack damage of this commander's troop by 20% for 3 seconds. Personally, I think this is a pretty good buff. If we take a look at some of the other commanders in the game that are out-of-the-box commanders, let's see how that compares. So if we have Double C, his active skill deals 1400 damage as well. Ethelfled's active skill deals 800, but she has a massive debuff. Elcid is 1000, and Mehmed, who everyone loves, is only about 1350, not including his secondary skill. So this seems to be just about on brand. I'm not terribly surprised by this. I think that first skill is actually pretty viable. On to the next one. Infantry units led by this commander gain 10% increased health and 15% increased march speed. While outside of Alliance territory, this commander's troop deals 20% more normal attack damage. So I have a couple things to say on this. That infantry health bonus of 10% is terrible. Realistically, we're seeing buffs way higher than that these days in the game. The 15% march speed is nice because your infantry marchers do want to run away, but if I'm being honest, I don't think that 15% increased march speed is really going to make that much of a substantial difference in terms of you getting your infantry commander out of combat. Now, the commander dealing 20% more normal attack damage. That is very nice when we talk about tankiness, and I believe with that first skill, you do get a normal attack bonus of 20%, which means that this commander is going to be dealing a fair amount of damage outside of his main skill, which I personally am a big fan of, especially if we're talking about early game where you might want to pair him with Martel or Richard. So up until now, I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. You may also be able to pair him with Alex, who also gets that increased march speed bonus, and you can run away and deal a fair amount of damage. So for now, I'm feeling good about him. On to number 3. We have infantry units led by this commander gain 20% increased attack while on the map. Note, while on the map. This does not include in a structure or on your city garrison. Whenever this troop launches an attack, it has a 10% chance to gain a shield, damage factor of 500 for 3 seconds. So I love the shields in Rise of Kingdoms. I think if you're looking for a pair for Guan, these shields are always super viable. Which means that if you're early game and you've invested and you have Pyrrhus unlocked, you have a commander that you can be using with Guan that is not necessarily Alex, which does free up some of those extra gold heads. He also does have that tankiness that we see with that normal attack damage. That said, the 20% attack bonus is not all that significant, especially if we're looking at just that one bonus for this skill. Many other commanders were seeing significant bonuses well above that. And a simple example of that is even if you look at Double C. If we look at Double C, you can see that we have a 10% march speed and 30% attack bonus. So this bonus that we're seeing from Pyrrhus is kind of meh. I would have expected to see more infantry attack bonus if we're really looking at this commander to be viable in the field. And fourth skill, we have this commander's troop takes 20% less skill damage. If it has a shield active, their troop deals 10% more damage. This is quite possibly the best skill on Pyrrhus. And it really, really does help with that tankiness. I could totally see you putting Pyrrhus with Martel or Pyrrhus with Alex and using him to tank in the field, which as an infantry commander, you really, really want to do. Now, the other thing that I'll call out, which I don't see a lot of people mentioning, is the fact that all 4 of these skills are useful in the field, which for a lot of other commanders that we're seeing, especially gold key commanders, is not the case. Double C has a barbarian boost. Ethelfled does as well. Ragnar, I believe, has city buffs. This is actually fairly unusual when we take a look at a commander that's usable early game in the field. Even Martell, I believe, has a garrison buff. So Pyrrhus has all 4 skills that can be used. And the shield plays well on itself, so you don't necessarily have to add another commander that has a shield in order to take advantage of it. The other thing is, if you're using Guan or you want to invest in Guan early game, this 20% less skill damage taken and the 10% more damage dealt really helps to amplify the damage that your Guan is going to be putting out, at least until you'd like to max Alex. But at this point in the game, I actually would say you may not need to max Alex if you have Pyrrhus already. We'll have to do some testing and see how it compares, but with Alex not getting his museum buff yet, and the fact that we now have Scipio as the main secondary to Guan, I'm not really seeing the motivation there. And I think Pyrrhus may be really good. Onto his expertise. Whenever this commander's troop is hit with a normal attack, has a 10% chance to reduce the attacking troop's attack by 30% for 3 seconds. This again helps with Pyrrhus's tankiness. So for me, I think Pyrrhus is phenomenal as an early game commander that we're seeing come to Rise of Kingdoms. And I think he has really nice synergies with a lot of the other infantry commanders. So I would say that Pyrrhus is actually one of the better additions that they've made. Now, to answer the original question, is this Greece civilization great or god-awful? I think Pyrrhus is not necessarily tied to the Greek civilization. You can get him in gold keys as much as you want, and you don't have to be Greece. Now, all of the other buffs that you get from being Greece, infantry health, the rallied attack damage, the stone gathering speed, and the infantry units, to me, are not all that great in order to incentivize me to go with Greece. My recommendation is still, if you're starting in Rise of Kingdoms, I would start with China so you can get Sun Tzu in the building buff. And then, if you're looking at switching for combat, I would probably go for Rome because that march speed plus the infantry defense that you get from the Legionnaire unit is going to be more valuable than the infantry health and the rallied attack damage that you're going to be getting. I think for the most amount of players, it's just not enough. The rallied attack damage isn't viable for 90% of players, and the infantry health, while nice, is not really all that much of a big deal when you compare it to France, where you get 3% troop health across the entire board. Lastly, that stone gathering buff is completely useless for most players who are looking at France early game, who are looking at Greece in the early game. The reason for this is that early game you want to be training one troop type and specialize. Later on in the game you may want to be using more than one unit, but if I'm being honest, I don't think that stone is going to make all that much difference. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and if you've enjoyed, do hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right hand corner. Hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out.